Well, hello, it's Andrew Pike from Royal LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group, and today we have a hot topic, and it's all about the market and what's happening and are the prices following. So I will let Adam and Roy introduce themselves. Go ahead, Adam, and where are you from and what do you do?
Well, I'm Adam Henniger. I'm the broker and owner of Sutton Professional Realty.
I'm Roy Thomas. I'm a realtor with Sutton Professional Realty.
So, Roy, I'm going to talk to you because I remember your interview back in 2012, and you sold a property in the North End, and that was back when we had, the ship start here. And talk to me about the market that we were all in 2012, and how you feel that it relates now to 2022, if you even think it relates to 2022.
Well, that property there that was actually probably we got the same amount of activity that we were getting earlier this year on properties. I remember that one very clearly, and it was just kind of a fluke. It was just after they made the ship's announcement. They were getting the shipbuilding contract. It went on in February. There was nothing for sale in that market, so it was just I got 25 showings and 10 offers in one day. And it was just crazy. And that's kind of what we had here, but we had the same conditions. We had in the last 2 years a shortage of inventory, but we had it all year round, as opposed to just being when that property went on the market in February. So I don't think they're overly the same. I mean, the last 2 years we've had a huge shortage of inventory. I mean, most times you went to list a property, there was nothing else for sale in the area. You were the only one. That was very consistent. So you went on, you sold it, and then something else came on afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting
So
more inventory in the market.
my question now, Adam, so, back in 2012, we would have had, 20 showings, 10 offers, very similar to what we were just in. And after the dust settled, and when we found out that, we had the first right of refusal for the contracts, the market kind of shifted. And would you say that's something similar to what we're experiencing right now here in Halifax?
Yes and no. I mean, I'd be more inclined to describe the market in comparison to the housing crash in 2008, although I don't think that's where we're going. I think we're heading to a really hot market comparable to 2006, which would be the second strongest market we've ever seen if it wasn't in comparison to the last couple of years. I think the Ship Start Here campaign drove some very localized excitement in the North End. Yes, that ended quickly when we found out that the Ship Start Here was more of a hypothetical thing, but it didn't really impact the market as a whole. It was on a much smaller scale and not on an economic basis. It was on a basis of hope and excitement, where this is more, I think, tied to fundamentals. And when the Ship Start Here, when that was tapered off, we didn't really see any loss in value. We saw people cooling off. We saw a loss of excitement, but we didn't see any loss of value.
So I would have a different opinion on that. But before I get into that, I would have sent you, I talked about high rigor since March. And the property that was in Sackville that listed at 279 sold for 500. So I just recently sent you the stat of that street and those particular homes. So a month later, another baby split list at 289, I think, sold for 420. And now one just sold for 319, 330, whatever it was. So how do you feel, what are your opinions, Roy, of the buyer who purchased at market value in April or in March at 500,000? Would he be able to list his house tomorrow and get 550 for it? Whereas the other one just got 330.
No, he bought at a peak price and arguably maybe even above a peak price at that time. And no, we've seen the market slow down. I just sold one recently that we sold it for 10% less than the identical house sold for 10 days previous on the next street over. So we did see the market take a little bit of a drop in prices. Basically, it's the demand. I mean, on the property as mentioned, the previous agent had 9 offers. I had 1. 10 days difference, same house, 2 streets apart.
Yep.
So
wow.
The demand has just dropped down a little bit. Where apparently we're still getting multiple offers. I saw a stat that I think it was in July that 48% of homes got multiple offers. Well, a couple months ago, it was more than 90% were getting multiple offers. So the demand has just dropped off. Plus, we have more inventory in the market.
I would say, Adam, the parallel that I see from 2012 and the market that we're in now is that, so we did have buyers who would have purchased at, the peak end of the market value. But when they go to sell their homes, I'm wondering if it will be the same. I feel that it will be the same as it was in 2012, that if you had to wait at least up to 5 years before you sold your home because the rest of the street hadn't caught up to the amount that you would have paid for your house. That's what I see, or that's what I predict is going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of where I'm referencing 2008, the housing market crash. Nova Scotia, we tend to be conservative. So if you look at the 2008 crash in the States, it had a major impact, and there was a major decrease in property values. I can't remember exactly, but in the nature of 30%. It took 3 years before that had an impact in Nova Scotia, and the impact it had in Nova Scotia was cooling off sales. So in general, in all of these economic trends, it takes a longer time to impact Nova Scotia, and because we're a little bit more conservative in our decision making. And then a lot of families, instead of saying, well, I'm going to sell at a loss, they say, well, I'm not going to sell, we're going to hold it. So what we saw was people holding their homes, and the volume of sales dropped. The price came to zero. It did drop in some sub-markets, but as HRM as a whole, it pretty much went to zero and stayed there as people just sat tight and waited. However, one thing that's different this time around is we do have a 17,000 unit shortage, and I think that's going to counterbalance that as well. During any time of change, the market is hesitant, and it slows down, and people are risk adverse. It's that same conservative approach. But once people realize that, say, looking at Henniger, prices have stabilized, prices have come down to a more affordable level, I think that will drive some excitement in the 17,000, well, actually 36,000 people looking for the 17,000 unit shortage. And I think those economic forces are going to counterbalance each other. I don't know whether prices will continue to climb at 10% or slow down, maybe go to zero, maybe go slightly negative. I'm inclined to think it's going to stay around 10% growth, just because of that unit shortage.
Yeah, I would have sent a stat this morning, and I don't know if you were able to see it. So this time last year, in 2021, there were, let's say, 4,700 homes sold. And in 2019, we had 3,900 homes sold. And now we have 3,500 homes sold. And if we look at the active, 2019, there were 1,900 active. 2021, there were 521 active. And now there are 700 homes active. Roy, where do you feel that our market, let's say between now and the spring, do you feel that we're going to go back to a more balanced market, or, because there were more homes that were sold in 2019 than we have right now?
Yeah, I think we're going to see it stay in the seller's market, but I don't think it's going to be as hot. The interest rates rose up significantly recently, and that has changed people. It did take some people out of the market. It's also made some people decide to wait for a while. But we do have a housing shortage, and there's still not. So eventually we get pent-up demand, and people have to make a move. So I think we're going to see it stay strong overall till next spring. But I think right now we're seeing a little pause because people are trying to figure out where the interest rates are going to go to.
And Adam, what are you telling, your agents at, are you coaching your agents on conversations to have with their sellers now? Like, what seems to be the word on the street with your agents?
I guess what I'm telling them, the same thing what I've told them the last 3 years, the last 5 years, is to focus on market value in the current stats, the current sales, what the current market is doing. I'm expecting us to stabilize. We're going to go through a period of change with the interest rates and people's uncertainties and fears, but I think we're going to stabilize probably, 5 to 12% price growth. And once we start stabilizing, the activity is going to come back. Having said that, I think, the excitement of the last 2 years is gone. We're going to be back to the fundamentals, where we're going to be looking at average time on market of 30 to 40 days. The top listings, the best listings in the best condition at the best price, not necessarily the lowest price, but an accurate price, they're going to continue to see competing offers. But I think that'll only be the top 25 best, or maybe even only the top 10% best. So the competing offers aren't going to go away for the best on the market, but for everything else, it's going to be back to a more traditional, balanced style market.
I see that happening as well. We had the perfect storm in 2021. 2 years of military moved here. We had interprovincial moves. Then we had people who were from here moving back home. So we don't have that anymore. And what I tell, to my agents, and when I'm sitting with a seller, is that we are in a seller's market with a buyer market mentality. And, if you would have looked at, homes that we would have sold prior to the pandemic, there was no sense of urgency from local buyers, and there was no competition, to speak of, really, because there was an abundance of homes for people to choose from. And so I don't know if the spring market will change, like if we start getting military moves again, with that impact. But I don't see the velocity of prices increasing the way they have been. Like, if I was to look at 2019 prices, right, I would say that we are not far from that now, from what houses are going to sell for. Again, if you looked at, the last high rigor house that just sold was only in the 300s, where, hypothetically, the one that sold in April or March should have been, that's where it would have sold as well, right?
It's shifting, right? And different price points are going to have different reactions. The entry level price points, and it's crazy to call 300,000 entry level price point at this point, but they are more sensitive to market shifts, and condos are more sensitive to market shifts, along with interest rate changes. And first time buyers are more sensitive to those changes, where move up buyers, more stable financially people are less impacted by this. But I think too, we're going to see the rates starting to drop. We're already seeing the 5-year rates coming down a little, and I think in the next year or two we're going to see them continue to drop and stabilize as inflation comes under control.
So, Roy, have any of your, I've been hearing from agents in Ontario when I'm speaking with them that there seems to be more of a disconnect now with appraisals. Have you seen any of that with your deals, or maybe any colleagues, Roy?
No, I haven't heard of any situations where they had an issue on appraisal, so no, I haven't.
And how about yourself, Adam? Have you seen anything in your office?
I haven't seen it yet, but I can see that happening. Banks do tend to be very conservative in how they lend money, and the instructions they give to an appraiser can heavily influence the appraised value. It wouldn't surprise me to see that start happening, although I'm not sure that's an actual reflection of the market value of a property, more a signal of the bank's risk-adverse management practices.
So, Roy, would you tell your buyer now that it's a good time to purchase in Halifax?
Yeah, it is. It depends on what you're looking for, what your situation is, and how, if you need to buy a house. You certainly are going to be looking at a different approach to it than you were a few months ago. There's no guarantee you're getting a multiple offer, and if you're not getting a multiple offer, then you're probably going to get the house for less than its asking price. But yeah, and I mean, I'd also suggest to them that they want to probably look at good luck in their interest rate and for a little bit longer term than they would have maybe before, not necessarily go to the full 5 years, but the rates are going to stay up for probably a year or so, and then they're supposed to start coming down. So, it depends on the buyer's risk aversion, price point as well. A first-time buyer is going to feel differently about it than a move-up buyer who's got a significant down payment.
Absolutely. My question for you, Adam, would you advise your agents to tell their sellers that, you know what, it's still a great time to sell in Halifax, even though, you know, they may have missed the boat for competitive offers?
Well, sure. You know, again, it comes down to motivation and need and what they're doing. But a well-priced home that's staged properly, marketed properly, that's well prepared, will always sell for top dollar. You know, if they were selling solely for the purpose of cashing out, that they thought they won a lottery ticket, now they don't think they've won a lottery ticket, well, maybe they want to reevaluate. But if they're selling to move up or to buy, or any of the life circumstances that have changed that are motivating them to move, absolutely still a good time to sell and to buy.
I agree too. I think it's a good time to sell. But what I'm hearing though from lawyers, etc., that buyers are more particular now than they were, let's say, in 2021. And it is about, you know, putting your best foot forward when you go to sell, because if you had any deficiencies in 2021, people didn't care. But
Exactly.
now, you know, the market just switched overnight, it seems, and buyers have way more high expectations when they're coming in. If, you know, a seller would like to receive market value, you know, what their perceived market value is. So it is about stepping their game up now.
And I've seen this 3 times now. Every time a hot market cools off, buyers evaluate houses accurately. In a hot market, the best home on the street might sell for $600, and a very similar home on the street but needs $40,000 in repairs might sell for $590. And buyers are willing to deal with the issues because they need to buy, and they can live in the house and chip away at them. Any other market other than that incredibly hot market, the house that needs $40,000 work, it never really sells for $40,000 less, but now it's selling for $20,000 less or $30,000 less, reflective of the actual condition. And some might look at that as a statistical decrease. I don't think it's a decrease, because that best home that was worth $600 is still worth $600. Prices are just being sold, or houses are just being sold more accurately.
I would have to say that. And would that be your feelings as
Yeah,
well?
I agree 100% on that. And, you know, I mean, the prices are still up from what they were. The house I mentioned earlier in the broadcast here that I sold for 10% less than the previous house that sold for 10 days earlier. You know, my sellers were a little disappointed they didn't get the price they quite thought they were going to get, but then I did remind them that the price they did get was about double what they would have received 2.5 years ago. So they're still seeing the benefit of our market. It went up, but I mean, it just dropped a little bit. You know, they pretty much got double what their house was worth 2 years ago.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right to say that. I would agree. While you're not getting 2021 prices, you're still getting double of what you would have, let's say, in 2019.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Example.
They did very well in the properties. Yeah. Not quite what we were hoping to get, but we literally went on when the market dropped to the day.
No,
so it was still right. They still did well to sell, and I mean, you're still going to get a good price if you sell your house, because the prices. Real estate's cyclical. I mean, that's the bottom line. It goes up, it goes down, depending on market conditions. It's all controlled by supply and demand. There's nothing else that controls it. If the demand goes up and the supply goes down, the prices go up, period.
No, I would have to agree. Well, guys, this was so enlightening, and I haven't done a Halifax panel for quite some time, but I just feel that there's just been so many changes in our market since April. And I mean, you always have to pivot and change and go with the market flow. It's, again, what sold for in 2021, you may not get it. But like you said, Roy, anybody who is selling, you certainly are still going to do, you know, much better than you would have, you know, pre-pandemic, which is really still good news, right?
It's still a great time to sell.
Absolutely.
No, I would have to agree.
Buyer or seller focused on market value, it's still a great time.
Absolutely. Well, let's get some more houses sold. Well, guys, thank you so much. And I'm actually off to a listing appointment myself in Emmonsdale. So hopefully we'll get that listed and sold for her.
You're
well,
welcome.
thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.